Welcome to Bedtime Stories Creepy, where dreams take a dark turn and nightmares come to life. Make sure to relax and enjoy the chilling tales that await you. The Tylenol Murders. In the crisp September air of 1982, a silent killer stalked the streets of Chicago, lurking in the most unlikely of places, the medicine cabinet. What began as routine purchases of a trusted pain reliever would soon descend into a nightmare of unspeakable horror, leaving a city gripped by fear and paranoia. From the quiet suburbs to the bustling city center, 7 unsuspecting individuals fell victim to a sinister plot that would baffle investigators and haunt the collective consciousness of a nation for decades to come. The Tylenol Murders, as they would come to be known, marked a turning point in the annals of true crime history, forever altering the way we view the safety of the products we trust with our lives. Join us as we delve into the chilling tale of the Tylenol Murders, a story of innocence lost, lives shattered, and a community forever changed by the darkness that lurked within a seemingly innocuous pill. Chapter 1: A Deadly Discovery. The sun had barely risen over the suburban neighborhoods of Chicago when tragedy struck with swift and merciless precision. In the quiet enclave of Elk Grove Village, Mary Kellerman, a bright-eyed 12-year-old girl, awoke with a throbbing headache. Concerned for their daughter, Mary's parents offered her a dose of extra-strength Tylenol, a trusted remedy for minor ailments. But what began as a simple act of parental care would soon spiral into a nightmare beyond their worst imaginings. Within hours of taking the Tylenol, Mary convulsed and collapsed, her young body racked with agony. Frantic, her parents dialed emergency services, but it was too late. By the time help arrived, Mary had slipped into unconsciousness, her life cruelly snatched away by an unseen killer. As news of Mary's death spread, shock and disbelief rippled through the community. How could a seemingly harmless medication claim the life of an innocent child? It was a question without an answer, a mystery that would haunt investigators for years to come. But Mary Kellerman was only the first victim in a string of tragic deaths that would rock Chicago to its core. Across town in the suburb of Arlington Heights, Adam Janis, a 27-year-old father and husband, also fell victim to the deadly pills. After experiencing a mild headache, Adam reached for a bottle of Tylenol from his medicine cabinet, unaware of the danger that lurked within. Minutes later, he collapsed in agony, his family rushing him to the hospital in a desperate bid to save his life. But despite the efforts of medical staff, Adam Janis would never regain consciousness, becoming the second casualty in a growing epidemic of death. In the wake of Adam's death, his grieving family gathered at the Janis home to mourn their loss. But tragedy would strike again with cruel and indiscriminate force. Unaware of the danger, Adam's brother Stanley and his wife Teresa each took Tylenol from the same bottle, seeking relief from their grief. Within hours, they too would succumb to the deadly poison coursing through their veins, leaving behind 3 young children and a community reeling in shock. As the sun set on that fateful September day, Chicago found itself thrust into a nightmare of unimaginable horror. 7 innocent lives had been cut short by a shadowy killer, leaving behind a trail of devastation that would echo through the ages. Chapter 2: The First Victims. The morning sun rose over a city gripped by shock and disbelief as news of the deaths spread like wildfire. From the suburbs to the city center, the tragic stories of Mary Kellerman, Adam Janis, and the Janis family echoed through the streets, leaving residents trembling in fear. But the Tylenol murders were far from over. In the quiet suburb of Lombard, Diane Elsroth, a 23-year-old flight attendant, fell victim to the deadly pills after taking Tylenol purchased from a drugstore near O'Hare International Airport. Like Mary Kellerman before her, Diane experienced sudden and excruciating pain, her body convulsing as the poison took hold. Despite the efforts of emergency responders, she would not survive, becoming the 5th victim in a growing epidemic of death. In the nearby suburb of Westchester, Stanley Adams, a beloved postal worker and father of 3, also succumbed to the deadly pills after taking Tylenol for a mild headache. His death sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community, leaving his family and friends reeling in grief and disbelief. But perhaps the most tragic of all was the death of Mary Rayner, a 35-year-old mother and wife from Winfield. Like the others, Mary sought relief from a common ailment, never suspecting the deadly payload concealed within the Tylenol capsules. Her passing marked the 7th and final death on that fateful September day, leaving a city in mourning and a nation in shock. As the death toll climbed, panic spread like wildfire. Families emptied their medicine cabinets, tossing aside bottles of Tylenol like toxic grenades. Pharmacies and grocery stores raced to remove the tainted medication from their shelves, but the damage had been done. The Tylenol murders had cast a shadow over the Windy City, leaving residents trembling in fear and uncertainty. Chapter 3. Panic spreads. With each passing hour, fear tightened its grip on Chicago. Rumors swirled of a madman targeting unsuspecting victims, hiding in the shadows like a modern-day Jack the Ripper. Parents hugged their children a little tighter, wondering if the next dose of medicine could be their last. In a desperate bid to contain the crisis, Johnson & Johnson, the manufacturer of Tylenol, issued a nationwide recall of all Tylenol products. It was a bold and unprecedented move, one that would cost the company millions of dollars. But in the face of tragedy, profits paled in comparison to human lives. The recall sent shockwaves through the pharmaceutical industry, sparking a wave of copycat tampering incidents across the country. Suddenly, no medication was safe from the specter of contamination. It was a chilling reminder of the vulnerability of modern society to acts of senseless violence. But amidst the fear and uncertainty, a glimmer of hope emerged. Communities came together in a show of solidarity, offering support and comfort to those affected by the tragedy. From makeshift memorials to candlelight vigils, Chicagoans united in grief and defiance, determined to overcome the darkness that threatened to consume them. Yet, even as the city mourned its fallen, a sense of unease lingered in the air. Who was responsible for the deaths of 7 innocent people? And would justice ever be served for the victims of the Tylenol murders? The questions hung in the air like a dark cloud, casting a pall over the city and its residents. Chapter 4. The investigation begins. As panic gripped the city, law enforcement agencies sprang into action, launching one of the most extensive investigations in U.S. history. Teams of detectives, forensic experts, and federal agents descended upon Chicago, determined to unravel the mystery of the Tylenol murders. The FBI, renowned for its expertise in complex criminal investigations, joined the effort, bringing with it a wealth of resources and experience. But despite their best efforts, the trail seemed to grow colder with each passing day. Leads were pursued, witnesses interviewed, and evidence painstakingly analyzed, but the elusive killer remained one step ahead. Initial suspicions centered on the manufacturing process, with fears that the poison had been introduced at the source. However, meticulous testing revealed no evidence of tampering at the factory. The investigation widened its scope, probing every aspect of the supply chain, from production to distribution, in search of clues. But as weeks turned into months, frustration mounted among investigators. The lack of progress only fueled public outrage and speculation, with theories ranging from a lone psychopath to organized sabotage by a disgruntled employee. But without concrete evidence, each lead led to a dead end, leaving investigators grasping at straws. Yet amidst the uncertainty, glimmers of hope emerged. The FBI received thousands of tips from concerned citizens, each one a potential breakthrough in the case. Detectives sifted through mountains of evidence, searching for the elusive clue that would crack the case wide open. It was a race against time, with the clock ticking down on justice for the victims of the Tylenol murders. Chapter 5. The Search for Answers. As the investigation dragged on, pressure mounted on law enforcement agencies to deliver answers. Families of the victims demanded justice, while the public clamored for reassurance that such a tragedy would never happen again. But despite their best efforts, the mystery of the Tylenol murders remained unsolved, a dark cloud hanging over the city. The lack of progress only fueled speculation and conspiracy theories, with some suggesting a cover-up by powerful interests or a botched investigation by law enforcement. Yet amidst the noise and confusion, dedicated detectives and forensic experts continued to toil away, determined to bring closure to the families of the victims. But as years turned into decades, the case grew cold, fading from the public consciousness as new tragedies captured headlines and attention. The Tylenol murders became a footnote in history, a cautionary tale of the dangers of complacency and the fragility of life. Yet for the families of the victims, closure remained elusive. The wounds of loss ran deep, leaving scars that would never fully heal. Their loved ones may have been taken from them in the cruelest of ways, but their memory lived on in the hearts of those who knew and loved them. And so, the mystery of the Tylenol murders endures, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks within the most unlikely of places. Though the case remains open, one thing is certain: the victims will never be forgotten, their memory a beacon of hope in the face of unspeakable tragedy. Chapter 6. Changes and Reforms. In the wake of the Tylenol murders, profound changes swept through the pharmaceutical industry, forever altering the way medications were packaged and distributed. Tamper-evident packaging became the new standard, with manufacturers introducing innovative seals and safeguards to protect consumers from potential contamination. Federal laws were enacted to deter would-be tamperers, imposing stiff penalties for those caught in the act. The legacy of the Tylenol murders extended far beyond the realm of public health and safety. The case served as a wake-up call to an industry that had long taken consumer trust for granted, prompting companies to reevaluate their practices and prioritize the safety of their products above all else. But amidst the reforms and regulations, the human toll of the tragedy lingered on. Families of the victims continued to grapple with the pain of their loss, their lives forever altered by the senseless act of violence that claimed their loved ones. Though time may have dulled the sharp edges of grief, the memory of those lost in the Tylenol murders would never fade. Chapter 7. The Legacy Lives On. Decades have passed since that fateful September, but the Tylenol murders remain etched in the collective memory of a nation. The victims may be gone, but their legacy lives on, a testament to the enduring power of resilience and the strength of the human spirit in the face of unspeakable tragedy. Though the case remains open, with no arrests or convictions to date, the memory of those lost in the Tylenol murders serves as a somber reminder of the darkness that lurks within the most unlikely of places. Yet amidst the darkness, there is hope for justice, hope for closure, and hope for a future where such senseless acts of violence are but distant memories. And so, the story of the Tylenol murders endures, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the capacity for evil that resides within us all. But amidst the darkness, there is light, a light that shines brightest in the hearts of those who refuse to be consumed by fear, who choose instead to honor the memory of the fallen and strive for a better tomorrow. As the sun sets on another day, let us remember the victims of the Tylenol murders and the legacy they leave behind. For though they may be gone, their spirit lives on in the hearts of those who refuse to forget. Thank you for joining us on this journey through creepy stories. Each story is crafted with care and dedication, ensuring that every spine-chilling moment is captured just for you. If you enjoyed these tales and appreciate the effort that goes into producing them, don't forget to subscribe to Bedtime Stories Creepy for more nightmares that will keep you up at night.